Well, Mayor, thanks for sitting down with me. I want to begin by thanking you for last night, taking me down into the subway and showing me the initiatives that you and your response teams are taking with the mentally ill and the homeless that are down living in the subway and getting out of the weather down there. That was very enlightening and I think very educational for people.
So true, and really thank you for doing so. I was really amazed to see how the Dr. Phil brand, even in a tough crowd like New York, is people respect your trusted voice, and I think your real approach to the real problems that we're facing, and that personifies the real problem. The complexities that are associated with people who are dealing with not only severe mental health, but those who are silently dealing with depression and all the other forms of mental health. It is played out in our subway system.
It really is. And I think that's just one prong of the issue because there are so many that aren't there. Maybe they're one paycheck away from being there. Maybe they're one life experience away from being there that are living all around the city and they're alone and they're suffering from loneliness. And we talked about that some last night because that is a real issue, a real problem that impacts longevity. It impacts people's resiliency if they have a disease. And of course, those people are suffering from loneliness. Can you imagine? I know you can, but people need to think about how long the nights are when you have nothing to do, nowhere to be, to just sit there and nothing to look forward to, no hope. You're just, the hours are just dragging by forever.
Right. And you tend to start to exist and no longer to live. And, we ignored for many years how loneliness plays a major role in the social determinants of health.
Yeah.
And other countries, they start to look at loneliness czars and they really started to focus on that. And, we come from a culture where it's like, just, suck it up, step up a lift. These things don't impact you. But it does. And it impacts us in many ways. And we have to, number one, acknowledge it if we want to resolve it. And I'm hoping that our city start to do like others have indicated they're doing, of becoming trauma identifiers, identifying when people are going through trauma, not only who are coming for your services, but even your city employees. Our city employees, that vicarious trauma all day, every day. You're hearing the pains of people, and people don't realize it, but it plays on you in a real way.
It does. New York is a sanctuary city.
Yes.
Will it continue to be in the future?
The idea of sanctuary city and uh, those who are paroled into the country has been conflated. We need to clearly understand what a sanctuary city is. A sanctuary city, this was a law that was passed by former Mayor Koch and was also modified by Mayor Bloomberg. What it states is if you are here in this city, you have a right to services. You have a right to go to the hospital to get medical care. You have a right to have your children educated in our schools. You have a right, if you're a victim of a crime, that someone is going to respond to you. You have a right to use the basic services of the city. Because if you're here and you buy a loaf of bread and you're paying taxes, those are tax dollars going to coffers. No one's telling you that if you are an immigrant, documented or not, that you don't have to pay your taxes for those items. So because of that, you have a right to the services in the city. That's what a sanctuary city is. In addition to that, New York City has a right to shelter law that tells you if you are in New York City, you have a right to have shelter. No one thought that was going to mean 225,000 migrants and asylum seekers. This was a lawsuit that was passed years ago when a group of men who were homeless did not have shelter, and that lawsuit was passed and put in place. That is different than what we are experiencing right now with the migrants and asylum seekers. Both the sanctuary city law has nothing to do with that. These people are paroled into the country, and when they're paroled into the country, if they come here to New York City, then our right to shelter laws kick into existence.
Right. And you had a system for sheltering people here, meeting that law that would accommodate 40, 50,000 people?
Yes, we had, when I came into office, we had 65,000 people in our care already. With the migrants and asylum seeker crisis, that's an additional 220,000. That overwhelmed the city, this city. And the right to shelter law, we went to court and fought for this. The right to shelter law never was intended for humanitarian crises of housing everyone across the globe. As the law was in place before we challenged the right to shelter, it stated you could come from anywhere on the globe, come to New York, and stay on taxpayers' dime for as long as you want inside our shelter system. That just made no sense.
These are two different things.
Yes.
People that say, okay, New York, you thought it was so great to be a sanctuary city. Now you got to house all these people. That's not part of the sanctuary guidelines.
No, it's not.
The reason that you're housing these people is because there is a law that has nothing to do with sanctuary.
Not at all.
It's not really well defined what sanctuary city means, but
Right.
you could throw all that label off and you still have the law that says you come here, you have a right to shelter.
Right to shelter. It was over 40-something years that law was in place, right to shelter. What we did is we went to court and we said to the court that this was not the intention of right to shelter, that we will house anyone from anywhere on the globe that comes here. We must pay on taxpayers' dime their right to shelter. And the court agreed with us, and we were able to make some modification in that when it comes down to the migrants and asylum seeker crisis, this is a humanitarian crisis. That is not what right to shelter was put in place for.
Okay, but you're still housing these people.
No, this is what we did. This is why we were successful, because this is so important. We put a timeline on it. We were saying now to the migrants and asylum seekers that you can't come here and stay as long as you want. We're now giving you 30 days if you're a single adult, 60 days if you are a family with children. And within that time frame, you have to find your path. Now, that 225,000 that we've had, 170,000 went on the next step of their journey. Some decided they want to be reticketed back to the countries that they came from. Some went to the destinations that they wanted to go to in the first place. But 170,000 have moved on. We took a lot of criticism. People said we were inhumane for giving people a deadline. They attacked us for it. No, what's inhumane is having a child raised in a shelter system. You're less likely to graduate from high school if you're in a shelter system. And if you don't educate, you will incarcerate. Those who abuse of their right to be in this country by violating and harming innocent people, they should not be here after they serve their time. I'm clear on that, and I'm unwavering on that. And I'm looking forward not to be in a warring state with the incoming president and his team, but to be in a working state. Fix the immigration, secure our border, and make sure that we can protect Americans.
You've spent $6.5 billion.
Think about that.
Yeah, it's
Think
a lot of
about
money.
that.
What could you do with that?
Well, one, it's imperative, as we went out yesterday and walked in the subway system, we need to get people into what we call safe haven housing so they could get round-the-clock care. Imagine if we had $1 billion to do that. We will wipe out homelessness in this city if we had $1 billion. We have a large number of children that did not return to school after COVID, and they are chronically absent from school. A substantial number of them, tens of thousands. Imagine if we had $300 million, if we could have gone and put a real team together to find them. If we had a couple of $100 million to hire more police officers, $1 billion to put in our housing. You know, when you talk about $6.5 billion that was removed out of the economy, that is not going to hurt high-income New Yorkers. Specifically, it's going to hurt low-income New Yorkers. That should never have happened. Cities should not carry the weight of federal issues. Look at what happened to Denver. Millions of dollars out of their budget. Chicago, billions of dollars out of their budget. Los Angeles, Washington, Houston. These are big cities in America that they had to take a substantial amount of their cities' tax dollars that should have been going to the needy in their cities, and they had to send it over to deal with the national crisis. Not only New York, it hit our major cities in America,
Yes.
and even our border cities. When I was down in El Paso, and so what was happening there as well. This has hijacked these cities and their tax dollars to deal with the crises that they were facing.
Do you believe we should close the border?
Yes, we should until we get it under control and decide. There are several things that I think we can turn this crisis into an opportunity. Many of our cities are dealing with a serious decrease in population. We're dealing with a real workforce issue, everything from food service workers to nurses. We have a shortage, et cetera. Uh, we should control the process. If we parole someone into this country, we should tell them where to go. Here's we have a population problem. Here we have an employment problem. You go here for 3 years and then you can determine to move throughout the country. You should not dictate where you're going into the country. There should be a symbiotic relationship. You go where we need you to go. And then we should not be allowing and paroling in those who are gang members, those who have a history of violence. We have to do a better vetting job to make sure that whoever is coming into our country is coming here because they believe in the American dream.
I know you're a Democrat mayor, but so many things you're talking about are cultural issues that should be nonpartisan. I mean, getting the homeless taken care of, mentally ill taken care of, educational issues taken care of. These children that need safety, Americans that need safety, these aren't partisan issues. This applies to everybody. And you're taking all of these things on. And it seems to me that everybody would line up behind those things. Do you have enemies on these issues?
Oh, you do. I think that there's certain things that we have witnessed that is happening in our country right now that we need to really be conscious of them. One, I believe the radicalizing of our children. Here you had a person who went to an Ivy League school, raised in the best family, but when you read the manifesto and you look at his posture, he appeared to hate America.
The shooting that shook our city last week, CEO Brian Thompson of United Healthcare was the victim of a senseless act of violence.
When you looked at after October 7th, what was playing out on our college campuses and some of the paraphernalia of, destroy America, um, using the sports analogy, our young people, that's our AAA, that's our minor league. If they hate the jersey of the professional team, you in trouble. If you hate America, if you don't understand what America has done, and no, we're not perfect. We have a lot of things we have improved on, but it's the best country on the globe. And so I get criticized, and many people are criticized for one reason. They love America.
Right.
There's something wrong with you for loving America, a country where a young man is dyslexic and now he's elected to be the mayor of the greatest city, I believe, on the globe, only in America. And so, yes, there are those who their agenda is they hate our way of life.
Right.
And we need to be honest about that. And they want to hurt our way of life. And they're the numerical minority, but they're the loudest. They are organized, and they have a lot of partnership and a lot of legacy media. We have to be honest about that.